Mr. McGee, don't make me angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
You are about to listen to the Totally Super Awesome 80s Reboot Overdrive podcast.
This podcast is our fan tribute to the Incredible Hulk TV show. Be advised that has been exposed to radiation and we caution to listen at your own risk. You have now entered GammaCast.
And welcome to the GammaCast. I'm your host, Charlie the Professor Esser, and with me as always is the incomparable
80s music girl.
That is my awesome co-host. Hello, 80s music girl. Welcome back once again to the GammaCast. Tonight's episode, season 5, episode 2, technically, the Two Godmothers. David becomes an unwilling accomplice when 3 inmates, one of whom is heavily pregnant, escaped from a female prison to fled across the mountains. Let's see here. Director was Michael Vahar, written by Kenneth Johnson and Ruben Leder. Of course, as always, stars Bill Bixby, Lou Ferrigno, and Jack Colvin, who, of course, is not here today.
Yeah, but he gets a credit anyway because he's in the show, technically.
Yeah, he was, for some reason or another, a named talent, so obviously they felt he was important. And, man, I gotta tell you, this is one Bechdeli episode. I mean, the superfluity of the male characters is quite endearing in its own way, and we have some great drama.
Yeah.
Between our warden and her second and our 3 escaped prisoners.
Yes.
Very interesting.
It was. It was, to say the least.
Yeah. The 3 women, plan their daring escape. And to me, this is one thing that did bother me.
Okay.
When we first see the warden, she is in a suit.
Yeah.
She's dressed like a warden. Every moment after that, she is in a full sheriff's garb.
Yes.
And it struck me as odd that she, is she the, I don't quite understand, was she a warden and a civilian, or was she the sheriff? It was weird. Kathleen Nolan plays our warden. Of course, has done a lot of work. Incredible Hulk, and has been around for quite some time. Going back, oh wow. Actually, this is something I find. Wow, her history actually goes all the way back to 1953. You know what's funny? Our old codger in this film, his acting credits only go back to 1970.
How does that work?
Yeah, well, obviously he got into acting late. Some people don't age into the part that they're meant for until many years later. There's some people who are like Burgess Meredith, who are just born old and can play the old guy their whole life. But obviously John Stedman had to age into that. He plays Phil Giles, and I tell you, when I was watching that, I was watching and saying, "Is that Gabby Hayes? Is this like a special cameo by Gabby Hayes? Is this like his last role, his triumphant return?"
I know. He was in character considerably.
Yeah, Yeah, it was I really loved how they played this whole episode. This episode was really just fantastic.
It was.
I really loved the acting and the writing.
Mm-hmm.
And, David actually got to do some doctoring, too, which was kind of nice,
He did. He doesn't get to do that very often. Unfortunately, it was on other people and not himself, and that kind of confused me. Because he didn't heal. I know, but he didn't heal right away when the boulder smashed his hand. He was still broken in the Hulk form, so.
But that has been established, even though in the comic books the Hulk's healing factor is really, really insanely impressive. In the TV show, it is a little bit less so. So it heals, and it heals really well, but it does take it usually takes, as we saw when he was crippled, it takes 2 Hulk transformations to really heal everything up,
This is true. So it must have been a horrendous break then.
Yeah, well, exactly. Basically, he would have lost the hand had he not, because his hand was just completely pulped, one imagines. But, of course, and we see even the Hulk is like, man, my hand. You see him looking at it with a little, the rather inexpensive practical effects that they use there to make the little cut on the Hulk's hand, and he's but that is a weird thing in this, where you have people literally looking at him as he's hulking out, yet still not seeing him becoming the Hulk.
Right. Yeah, that was quite peculiar.
Yes.
I guess they were just so wrapped up in what they were doing. They just, I don't know what this guy's doing. Or he's freaking out, turning green.
Yeah,
anyway, I've got real problems here.
Yes, it is odd. So for those who haven't seen the episode yet, essentially what has occurred is there are these women in a women's prison. Or women's jail. It's not quite clear if it's a jail or a prison. And there are actual differentiations between jail and prison. It's an interesting thing, but and like I said, and that was a thing for me because the warden putting on the sheriff's outfit suggests it's a jail, not a prison.
Right.
But that if she's but of course, if she's a sheriff, it's an odd situation for people to be held that long in jail. Generally speaking, you can only be held 364 days in a jail. At least in some municipalities. At least according to people I know who have been sentenced to 364 days in jail.
Right.
Just a fun bit, yeah. So it does seem that it is meant to be a prison, but then why the warden is also the sheriff, I'm not sure. But they use one of their colleagues' pregnancies as a distraction to make the escape. And, this is an interesting point, I felt, because, of course, this is actually, this is to this day a real human rights issue, which is women who are pregnant or become pregnant in prison, when they give birth, they are shackled.
Yeah.
And it is a very dehumanizing reality. However, as we see here, the basic point is like, it's very easy when you're in that position to get someone to lower their guard.
Yes.
And so the idea of, shackling them, that's the argument. I personally am not a fan of it. I think that, just posting guards in the room should be more than enough. I don't think someone has to be physically shackled during the moment. But I guess that's that's a decision that's made at correctional facilities, not by me.
Right.
as not a correctional official, it's hard for me to say. But I did find that interesting that her motivation is that she doesn't want to give birth shackled, and she wants her child to be born free.
Right.
Which is a redeemable idea. Of course.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
he
but
probably went about it the wrong way. I'm
well,
thinking.
they certainly went about it the wrong way. They
Mm-hmm.
do kidnap David, and they have him drive his linen truck because he's gotten a gig at a linen truck.
Yeah.
Because man, they do not do background checks in 1981.
No, they don't.
Yes, our air date for this was because I think I forgot to mention it was October 9th, 1981.
Yes.
So, yeah, so David's driving the linen truck, and so they hijack the linen truck with David driving it, and David is being very calm and collected because he has to be.
Yes.
And he starts to slow down when they go over this rough terrain they're sitting on. They're like, "Hey, why are you slowing down?" And he's like, "Look, it's rough terrain. I'm bouncing a very, very pregnant woman up and down in the back. That's not good for her and the baby. And it's not good for the truck either, as we quickly see, because
No.
of course,
Yes.
yeah, he does break a tie rod, and he's like, okay, now the truck's shot. You made me drive fast on a bad road. Now the truck can't go anywhere. So our lady prisoners decide to hoof it with the pregnant lady, and I like this about David is that there is no reason for David to be staying here.
No.
Except that he has compassion for this woman and her child, that he is actually, he's trying to do the right thing, even though he knows it is probably going to be detrimental for him in the long run that he is actually
Always.
participating in this story. Yeah, well, we see repeatedly in this an ongoing conflict between our warden, played by Kathleen Nolan, and her right hand, who I believe is played by Suzanne Charney. Is that correct? I hope I'm reading the right person, because that's the next person listed. But they don't have a photo of her, so it's very hard to say.
No, actually, the one that you're talking about actually has a photo.
She has a photo? The actress?
Yeah. The one who's...
Okay.
I need to look at my notes now, so I didn't.
No, it's not.
I didn't bring up IMDb.
Yeah, I got IMDb in front of me, and I'm like looking.
Yeah.
Maybe. Oh, is that Gloria Gifford?
Yes,
Yeah, I think that's Gloria Gifford. There we go. Yeah, she does have a picture. Gloria Gifford. Oh, she was in Halloween 2, and 48 Hours, and This Is Spinal Tap. So she's certainly been working hard. Wow, her last credit is the 12 Monkeys 2016 TV series. So yeah, she is absolutely working. Wow, man, she's been on a lot. I'm just running her down here. Oh, Death of a Centerfold, 1981. That was a classic. Yeah, but she is the matron, and we certainly have this ongoing conflict between this woman and our warden, Hackert, who clearly, for what it's worth, is, we don't get whether or not she is like a cruel, vindictive warden, but we can definitely...
Seriously?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because it's like, we don't know if this is strictly personal.
Right.
We don't know how she has been as a warden, We don't know. Because there are wardens who are just, cruel and sociopathic, as we've seen when we saw when David went to the work camp.
Right.
Not too long ago, but we've also seen, you know, she could also just be, you know, a civil servant doing her job, but who is felt, you know, maybe heavily thwarted, maybe.
Honestly, I think her and Barbara had issues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Something tells me this isn't Barb's first rodeo, prison-wise.
Yeah.
And she's always managed to get the upper hand of said warden, and I think she's pretty much at the end of her rope. So honestly, I think the beef is with them two.
Mm-hmm.
And because it clearly, you could see it when, you know, when they first make, you know, their initial contact, and she shoves them in the room, and she's like, "Oh, you'll be back," you know. And she's all like psychotic and like, "Oh, and I can't wait to welcome you back," you know.
Oh, yeah.
And then when they come up on the linen truck, all she needed to do was hear a twig snap or a bird fart, and she's all over it, you know, just shooting it like, dude, seriously?
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
There's a pregnant woman in there.
the warden,
You know, I heard a click.
yeah.
Really? Was it time to take your meds, or what's the deal? You know,
Yes.
I actually wrote down, wow, what a bitch. But yeah,
Yeah,
she had it out for poor Barbie.
definitely was off her rocker.
Mm.
Here's a fun fact. The actress who plays Sandra, who I believe
Uh-huh.
was meant to be, who was our dumb blonde, as it were.
Yeah.
She actually goes on to play the mom in Charles in Charge. So wonderful little 80s. Yes.
Loved her in that.
I know.
So cute.
Wonderful little 80s cross reference here. And of course, she had actually been on the hook before. She was in Jake as Maggie, who I believe Jake was the one where it's the two rodeo brothers, yep. And she was the girlfriend of the older rodeo brother who had the younger screw up brother. So that's fun for those who remember. That was actually a pretty good episode because it was one of the first times where you really see Jack McGee doing some real reportage as a reporter, you know, in investigating his Hulk white whale, as it were.
It's funny.
Yes. Oh, she was also in Chud 2. Bud the Chud.
Nice.
Yes, not the original Chud, which is a classic, but they did make a sequel, Chud 2, which you know I think most people equally love. If you love Chud, I don't think there are very many people who are like, you know, I like Chud, but Chud 2 I kind of felt was a money grab.
And you know, that's a very interesting reference to our late John Hurd.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you remember that or not, but they were going through some yesterday when they posted it, or the day before yesterday when they posted that on Twitter, and people are remembering him, of course, as being the dad from Home Alone, but then other people who were significantly older were going, nope, he was in this, he was in this.
Yeah.
And I believe he was in Chud too.
I'm going to double I know that he was in Sharknado.
Sorry.
Yes. Well, you know, hey, the man had his work, you know. And
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Did pretty well in this.
I don't see him in Chud 2. He might have been in the original Chud, you know.
He might have been in the original.
Yeah.
I just remember that word for some reason when I was looking up things to tweet out about him.
Yes. Well, that is, you know, but that is, you know, that's the thing about acting as a business is, you know, people wind up in all sorts of things because if you're an actor, you know, no one knows what is your iconic role, you know.
No.
You know, no one knows that. And so you're an actor and someone says, hey, we'd like to pay you to read these lines. And, you know, they say, well, you had me at pay me. And, you know, they go in and they do the gig. And sometimes it becomes this great piece of art that is remembered for, you know, hundreds of years. And other times it's Sharknado, you know.
Exactly.
But if you're a good actor, you bring as much to Sharknado as you bring to any other role you've ever done. Because when you're sitting there and you're reading the lines, even if they're ridiculous lines, you have to imbue them with some reality.
You do.
But this episode
And
of the
remember
yes.
that they're paying you. So.
Well, yeah. But this episode of The Hulk does not lack for reality. Although, man, it is one of these great moments where you really see like the differences with the past and the present.
Yeah.
And I think we really see this when we actually have the birth, and we realize that she had no idea she was having twins.
Yeah. Neither did I. That was very surprising.
You know, 1981 ultrasounds were not a big thing.
Yeah.
I know this because in 1974 there was not an ultrasound, which is why, things got complicated. When I was born, ultrasounds are a relatively new and amazing device.
Yeah, they are.
That totally alters our complete understanding of medicine. And at this point in history, now, arguably you can say that any decent doctor would have noted that there were two separate heartbeats. However, of course, she's in prison, so she probably wasn't seeing a decent doctor.
Probably not. I'm going to guess no.
And another and this is one of these. So this was one of these other things that I saw about this. We have David feeding a pregnant woman tuna.
I was really, really worried about that because he said tuna sandwich, and I'm thinking tuna sandwich, tuna salad. Did that have mayonnaise in it? How long has it been in your pocket? Why are you giving it to a pregnant woman?
Well, this was 1981, and I don't.
No one heard of bacteria back then.
Well, it's not so much bacteria. It's that this understanding. First off, you're assuming he's using a fairly adequately pasteurized mayonnaise. Spoilage is usually not a concern when spoilage is mainly a concern when you're using fresh ingredients. Freshness is the killer. Something that's been properly pasteurized and had all the life boiled out of it. That stuff's usually good for 1,000 years, and that's why we do that. No, but I'm just thinking mercury in the fish, and and it is just.
That was really a big thing.
Yeah, it's an interesting. But that wasn't a thing, or that was even just starting to be a thing.
Yeah.
In the 80s, It
was totally.
Anyway, it was, but it's interesting. So you have that. He gives them that, and then this was also, and this is just a weird bit of emergency delivery nerdery that I just happen to have. Nowadays, for a breech, you don't push your baby back in.
The fact that he called it a footling, I'm like, huh? Well, speak English, man. What are you talking about?
He called it I actually totally missed that. Okay.
Yeah. He says, what we have here, we have a footling. And she's like, yeah, and? Like, yeah, and?
Yes.
Here's the flower, get some traction, push it back in very, 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 very carefully.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I like that they didn't show you.
Yeah. Well,
that was my fun fact. I'm like, thank you for not showing me that she's giving birth. I'm just going to automatically assume because she's screaming and pushing that there's a baby coming out.
Yes.
So.
And that's, I don't think anyone was confused on that point. But no, but nowadays what you actually do is you reach in and you try to find the other leg. Because the problem with I love you too, Ben. That's my son, Ben, my oldest son, Ben. Okay.
Hi, Ben.
Yes, we're not doing the video tonight. A lot of our other podcasts we're doing video now, and so because they do it with the Google Hangout and then they post it straight to YouTube. But I don't know how to do that, so I just know how to record. I just figured out recording on Skype. Leave me alone. But yeah, but nowadays what you do is you find the other leg, because the problem with the breech isn't so much that them coming out backwards is a problem. It's that one leg comes out and the other leg gets sort of bent back, and then the kid can't come out. It's the same thing if the arm comes out, which is actually a far more problematic issue. I think with the arm, you still push it back in. But if the leg comes out, you try to grab the other, you go in, you get the other leg, you pull both legs out, and then you just pull the whole baby out.
There you go.
There you go. That's the trick.
Easy.
Yeah, Kid winds up a couple inches taller, but you know what? That's going to help him out later in life. That's
It
what I
is.
say.
Is it the proven statistic that tall people are far more successful?
Exactly. But the babies are delivered, and I did love this with our Gabby Hayes gentleman because, of course, you know, so David, just to give it a little backtrack here, they decide to go through the military blasting testing area.
Yeah.
And you know what's interesting is, you know, the plane flies over,
Yeah.
and they all hide because they think the plane is the cops. But I saw that plane, I immediately saw, they're making sure no one's in the blasting area. Because before you start blasting stuff, you got to fly over to make sure you don't see someone down there. You know?
Right. Yeah.
Exactly. And
because they're not stupid. They know that people wander off in places they have no business wandering into.
That's the entire premise of the Hulk. The original story is, you know, a kid goes out on a nuclear bomb testing facility, the first gamma bomb, and Bruce Banner says, "Wait, there's a young boy out on the testing range," and he, you know, halts the launch. But then, of course, the evil mad scientist who is helping him build the gamma bomb says, "Yes, and now I will let the bomb go off, and I will steal all your secrets, and Russia will have the bomb." Bum, bum, bum. But yeah, but that's what the plane is about. But they hide, and so they don't know it. So the guy who's doing the flyover says, "Yeah, no one's on the field. Go ahead with the test." And so they start blowing stuff up.
Bombs away.
Of course, you know, the rocks start falling. David has the rock hit his hand, and that causes him to Hulk out. And again, even though he's right there wearing the exact same clothes, and at first I'm thinking they're watching him turn.
Yeah.
But later when they address it, they say, "Oh, and that monster, where'd that come from?" And this goes to what I think is my central theory about when he hulks out, which is that seeing someone hulk out is very traumatic. And essentially people block it out from their brain. It is so outside of the norm that people just say, "You know what? That didn't actually happen. I didn't see that. I have no idea what that was, and I'm just going to move on from it." And then when they see David again, even though they saw him Hulk out, they're like, "Yep, that was a crazy thing that happened."
Yeah.
And again, I think we see it again next episode. So we'll talk about that next episode as well, which is also a really good episode. And I really was impressed, you know, watching these two episodes back to back. The level of social commentary we're getting in these episodes.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, they've really stepped their game up.
Yeah.
They didn't have to actually make up anything to, you know, for it to be interesting. It's like, what can we come up with this week? Let's search our minds to fabricate something that only Hollywood could create. It's like, no, they've got hard evidence. They've got real facts. Like you said, they've got the social commentary, and I just can't wait to talk about our next episode because I didn't even take notes for that one.
Yeah,
I just totally didn't even take notes.
It's a very good episode, but we got to finish this one first. And this was, like I said, just as good an episode. I loved
it. Was
I loved the fact that, you know, you have these three female protagonists, and really, if you count the secondary, you know, the matron, it's 5 female protagonists, you know. You know, each in their own story, each talking about what they're doing, you know.
Yeah.
It is great that, you know, you really have David as just sort of the damsel in distress. He's just sort of going along for the ride.
Yeah.
And
making
then
tuna sandwiches for people. Yeah.
Well, you know, he had it in his pocket, you know. And,
I know.
And of course, good old Phil Giles, our mountain man, who still has an ice box. You gotta let
me say the line. You gotta.
Yes.
You can rob me, you can burn my cabin down, but please don't shoot my dog.
Yeah. Well, you know, he loves that dog. That's his. That's his baby, man. That's all he's got. He's got that dog. He's a crazy old coot who lives in the woods.
That's all he has.
Man. That was a nice dog, too. And then, you know what?
He's like a Benji type. Did you notice that?
Yes.
Did you notice he was the Benji type? Because
yeah.
Benji was all the rage back then.
Absolutely was. He was bigger. Benji's a very,
Yeah, he was a taller Benji.
Yeah, he was, because he had to look like he could be a mountain dog. But he did have the same style shaggy hair as a Benji.
Yes.
What I thought was fascinating about that, though, was that we see that dog and then we don't see him again afterwards.
I know. What happened to him?
They just
I'm out of here, people. You guys are crazy.
You know what it was? I'm going to tell you exactly what it was. That all the rest of the scenes they got to pay for the two German Shepherds.
There you go.
Because they kept the German Shepherds on. You just got to remember, they got to get a whole other wrangler for those other dogs. For each, they got to have people on set. If you want to get your, ASPCA certs at the end, you gotta, and so having that extra dog, and the dogs get paid well, You
do.
Because they have a skill that it's hard to replicate. You got to get a dog that's going to go up to Lou Ferrigno and lick the cherry syrup off his hand. Although, man, when that dog starts licking that Hulk blood, I'm thinking, man, that is a gamma irradiated dog.
Yes.
That is going to be a Hulk
I thought
dog.
about that too. I was like, honey, you don't really want to be doing that.
Yes, but
green and get all big and puff it.
Yes. But the guy who under duress takes them back to their cabin. The pregnant lady starts to go into labor.
Yeah.
And then, they let the old coot go out to get the water. Because he says, where's the water? And he says, it's out back. He says, well, go get it so we can put it. Because they're, David is such a trusting sort. Especially of fellow Moody drifters.
Yeah. Yeah, he knows the ins and outs.
Yeah, he feels that esprit de corps. But of course, John Stedman takes the bucket and runs out because he's like, "You guys, I'm not sticking around for this." So he probably took the dog with him. If you want to give some canon as to where the dog is, he took the dog with him.
Mm-hmm.
He said, "Rover, get in the back of the truck. Let's go." And they went and they found the cops, and they bring the cops back as the babies are being born, and we see, Hackett wants to just start shooting in tear gas, and and Grubb, which is the name of our second in command, is basically being the voice of reason here. Previously tells her, you're a public official. Public officials get into a lot of trouble. They start shooting pregnant ladies.
Exactly.
Boy, what a simpler time when, if you were a police officer and you just shot some unarmed person, that there were consequences.
Yes.
But Hackett goes full off, just, isn't going to announce herself. She's going to just start shooting stuff in. And, of course, when David goes to walk out, he gets grabbed by the cops. And for what it's worth, this is where that broken hand comes in handy because, of course, that gives him the pain. And then he gets panicked when he realizes she's going to start shooting in the tear gas at the babies. And that's how we get our next Hulk out. And, he really dismantles the police force there. And, although the prisoners know they have nowhere to go.
Yes.
And that of course I think is the real scene there, because of course our ringleader, Barbara, comes out waving the white flag.
Yeah.
And like so many cops today, Hackett tells her to drop the gun. And she's like, I'm not holding a gun. Just drop it.
The sheet. Hello.
Just shows you how relevant the Hulk gets, It's like, man, this was written in 1981. And, we still get the sense today. But, of course, fortunately, there is a Hulk. And Hulk solve all problems.
Yes, he does.
And, And when we get our end sequence, we see that now the second in command, the Grub, is now the warden, and she's wearing the suit again. Again, this is weird thing where they wear the suit unless they're going into the field. So she's wearing the suit, and she is, and she's basically telling the ladies, "A, no hard feelings."
Well, yeah.
The lady who gave birth, we're gonna let you out in another month. You can see your baby. They're being softies.
Yeah.
This
Well,
is-
because they're heroes now, because they had to take down the psychotic
Yes.
work.
Yeah, and I guess that's that selling point is that the warden was probably, basically, it's easy to argue that warden was cruel and inhumane when she's shooting at, unarmed women and babies,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's like she straight up shot at them, She knew there was a possibility of a pregnant woman there, and other person came out waving a white flag, and she is threatening to shoot him, So that warden's out, the new warden's in, and then David, redressed with a bag, hits the road again. How that man gets himself together and out the door every time.
He's every woman's dream, I'm telling you.
Never ceases to amaze me.
Yeah.
Rose, if people would like to seek you out and listen to all of your wisdom on the 80s and 80s music and anything else that you might have an opinion on, how can they find you?
Well, I am at 80s Music Girl on Twitter, 80s Music Girl on Instagram, and 80s Music Girl on Facebook.
Awesome. And, of course, you can always write to me in that old-fashioned email way, as we did back in the 80s, at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog, all one word, @gmail.com. And, of course, follow me on Twitters at Charlie Esser. That's CharlieEesser. Look for the two E's in the middle for quality. Thank you for hulking out with us once again. Ladies and gentlemen, please hulk out with us once more.
We hope you've enjoyed this show. This podcast is part of the 80s Reboot Overdrive channel on Southgate Media Group. You can follow us on Facebook on the 80s Reboot group page. We're also on Twitter and Tumblr at 80s Reboot. We invite you to check out all the wonderful podcasts and blogs available at southgatemediagroup.com. And thank you for reliving the 80s.